Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. You said it, yeah.
Hi, Darnell.
So it was, it was funny. So I was looking online for memes about Phantom of the Opera, and I saw one that said, "He's climbing in your mirrors, snatching your Christines up." I just thought it was cute.
Isn't it amazing that anybody feels bad that it only made 35 years on Broadway? And that he's
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Maybe 35 years? Jeez,
It's,
that was what? Oh, you're only 7
watch.
years old.
Yeah.
Of my life.
Watch it.
Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title, but we
Still,
cannot name
we
the
are
podcast. We cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. The Phantom of the Opera is there, but not for long.
If we want to last 35 years, we might want to try it.
Not for long.
All right. Well,
35 years is not long enough.
Not long enough.
To haunt.
So
to haunt
we do
theater.
know, and it's important to say, after it leaves us, assuming it actually does, because it's making buku money now that they announced it's closing.
Is it going to tour?
Well, it's been touring for decades. What are you talking about?
I know, but will it stop touring, or is it just leaving Broadway?
Oh, no, just leaving Broadway. But the 4 longest running shows will now be Chicago, that are currently running. Chicago Lion King, which hits 25 years this year. Wicked. And Book of Mormon. So those will be our long-running hits that continue into the next season. Phantom's going to be around till January, they're claiming. My guess is it's going to make it a little longer than that because they'll be doing such good business.
Yeah. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnell Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And
I'm the curmudgeon of the two of us. Darnell is the singer.
I said there's another podcast I listen to called Script Notes. It's a podcast about screenwriting for those who love screenwriting. For screenwriters about screenwriting. Something. I'm sorry, John August, I'm ruining it. But it's John August and Craig Mazin. And Craig Mazin's kind of like the curmudgeon in the group. And that's you, Mitch.
That's me.
You're the curmudgeon.
That's me. I've lived too long on Broadway and off Broadway.
I'm just waiting for opportunities to badly sing.
Well,
you're
gonna have to work hard, Darnell. Work hard. I wouldn't do that to our audience.
Well,
I
feel like here in my studio I'm safe because if I get out into the world, I'll get hit in the face with critics.
Nice transition.
There you go. All go. Right, boom. Let's talk about how terrible critics are, except for the ones that I know that I'm close friends with.
Well, and this is the problem, is that the first of all, the issue of critics has been discussed and debated since I was a little baby. Mostly because the New York Times was always so powerful that if 900 newspapers and blogs say this show is amazing, and the New York Times says, the show will close within a month. It is that powerful. Now, it doesn't really matter who the critic is. That's what's so strange about it. I don't know what many of these critics think their purpose is. They seem to be literary. They like to read their own words, and some of them are very talented. But for the most part, I read a critic, correct me if I'm wrong, I read a critic to find out whether or not I'm going to enjoy a show. And therefore, I don't really care whether the set reminded you of Chekhov when it was badly done in London in 1842. that shows your knowledge as a critic, but it doesn't help me as an audience member. So that's always been my argument. If you've ever written a show or directed a show or even been in a show, a critic, someone you don't know, someone whose opinion may be colored by the fact that they had an awful morning and their uncle died.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is possible, and they come in and they'll say, well, the actor was okay, or the script really doesn't have much to offer. It's trying to be like a poor Tennessee Williams. You know, you've just taken someone's baby. And the first question is, there are bad shows. I mean, first answer, of course there are. But there are shows in which there's great talent in it, and it may not have worked. Doesn't the people involved get to learn that? Don't we all get to? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm on a rampage.
No, that's okay. I just want to step back a bit because you said there are bad shows, but are they bad shows or are they just not ready?
Great question. I think being part of a developmental process, a company that works developing shows right now, I believe most talented writers, and that's a qualification. I don't know how you define that, but people who basically have some talent for either dialogue or character or themes or whatever, or poetry, depending whatever their show is about, that with enough development, it could be turned into a great show. Case in point, again, I refer back to producer Joseph Bapp, who rarely read the plays he produced. Because to him, and he said this to my face, theater is a collaboration. You take a great script and you give it the wrong director, and it fails. You take a mediocre script and you give it an amazing director and cast, and it might succeed and become a classic, which I always use the example of Pippin, which as a musical, if you just read it, it's not, I will go with the critics on this, it's not a great script. However, you put Bob Fosse in charge, and he got in big arguments with Stephen Schwartz over the direction of the show, and the producer sided with Bob Fosse and kicked Stephen Schwartz out of the theater during rehearsals to allow Bob Fosse to do what he needed to do to save the show. And it became a totally enjoyable evening of theater. It still doesn't mean that's a great show. So, I mean,
send me an ingenue.
I beg your pardon.
Bob Fosse.
Well, let's just
send me an ingenue.
Let's just go for the lyrics to Magic to Do, the opening number.
Yes.
Leave your cheese to sour? Really? You're going to open a show with a lyric that says, leave your cheese to sour. Okay. Got it. I'm now moved. I care. But see, here I am being an awful critic. The main reason I don't have a problem with being a critic of that is because I enjoyed the show and because it's a hit and will be done for a long time. So I'm not here to try to tell Stephen Schwartz he can't write. He can.
It's like, just stay with us. That's kind of what's happening there. It's like, join us. Leave your fields to flower. Leave them. Join us. Leave your cheese to sour.
I'm sorry, that's just a cheap rhyme.
Come and waste an hour or two.
That line I have no problem with, right?
Doodly.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead. Finish it up.
Journey.
I want everyone to know that you may not be laughing as loud as I am, but you're smiling as loud as I am.
Exciting, mixed and exciting.
Meanwhile, we have classic. I mean, we have Death of a Salesman. We have Raisin in the Sun. We have, Tennessee Williams and August Wilson.
What I was saying is that all of that is kind of like, huh? What? But you're getting to the chorus, and it's the chorus that really pulls in. We've got magic to do.
Right, absolutely.
Just for you. We
But see, Stephen Sondheim, the reason he is the ultimate standard is because he wouldn't let a lyric like that get by. He would rewrite it until every word had meaning.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for a Pippin in our cultural lives. So why does a New York Times critic need to go after new playwrights who have talent and may have missed a scene, may have missed a moment between characters, and not be willing to say anything good about that playwright to encourage them to write their next play?
Well, this is why I've always said, this is why I've always felt that, the critics' review is part of the conversation.
Okay.
It's part of the conversation, but if you are a patron of this show and you go to it and you do not have any idea what the critic said about it, and you resonate with the piece, are you wrong? Because this critic,
of course not.
panned the show?
Of course not.
Yeah, so that's why this is just one commentary, and unfortunately, we are so hung up on the review that
not every review, but I'm going after the New York Times, and it's not their fault. I mean, it's not.
But still, we forget why we're in the theater to begin with.
Right.
Yeah. If you were in there expecting,
No, good point. You're absolutely right. The issue is, this is what's great about social media, and there's very few times you're going to hear me say that line, but this is what is good about it. The number of bloggers, the number of people who can send word of mouth about a show or a movie that they saw, it absolutely muffles the bad professionals. I mean, of course, look, if the New York Times were to rave, about a show I wrote or something, I'd be ecstatic. But it's not because I really care about what that one person said. It just means I may make a living. They may actually send people to buy tickets. That's the problem, not their opinion. They're allowed to dislike a show. It's how much control they still have over the theater-going public. I will say, even up in Barrington Stage, it was so important that the local papers liked the show because we had to sell tickets. It really didn't matter whether we thought the show was good or not. And that is a real problem. I don't know what to do about it. And so the question, I do have a great story about, and he can be named because this has been evidenced in the past. Clive Barnes, who is a very famous long-term New York Times critic. There was a show called Antony and Cleopatra on Broadway at the Palace Theater, starring, I may get this wrong, but I think it was Rex Harrison. And there was a rumor, I will call it a rumor, going around about Clive Barnes falling asleep during shows and like pre-writing his reviews, have no evidence one way or the other. And Rex Harrison decided he was going to test this. And so he bought the 10 seats around the location where Clive Barnes was going to sit on opening night. And he put his friends in there. Well, Clive Barnes, according to his friends, came drunk and fell asleep in the middle of Act 1, but his review had mostly a discussion of the last scene of the play. So the evidence of these 10 people were sent to the New York Times, who fired Clive Barnes the next day. What had happened is Clive Barnes pre-wrote the review, left some blanks because you have to see who's playing what part in the program, so his assistant could put those names in the right spot. And he actually never stayed awake and watched the show. because he was drunk. Now, I think it was 1 month later, the New York Post hired him as their chief critic.
Huh.
So he did fine, but this is what is advising us, shall we say.
Yeah.
You know, we have to take it with a grain of salt.
It's hard when you hear stuff like that. You're like, all right, so why do we care?
Say it louder. What was that? Why do we
care what they think?
Well, but that's it. Normally, I'm fine with ignoring it. I've seen too many reviewers and things that I loved, of course, that deserve to be hits. The problem is that most of my parents' friends and even my friends look to the reviews as to whether or not they choose one show over the other, since they have a limited amount of funds.
Mm-hmm.
And if a show gets a rave, they're going to go, I'm going to that one before I go to the other one.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's people within the industry, we understand how to balance things.
Yeah, I'm definitely a different bird. My my friend has a show, and as part of Fringe Arts, sent me a message on Instagram saying, my show opens tomorrow. It'd be great if you were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it. I was like, I've covered your work in the past. Sure. So my response was, see you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I know everybody doesn't do that.
No.
And I bought a ticket I bought 2 tickets as well, because the thing is, like, sure, you want me to be there. You could have given me a comp, especially last minute. But I thought about it. I was like, if I'm going to go, what am I going for? I'm going to support him. So I'm going to go and support him. Right. and process it. However I process it, I'm not walking in with any expectation, but I know everybody doesn't do that. And particularly for Broadway, yes, you can't just, unless you have very disposable income, just walk up to TKTS, because let's face it, nobody pays full price.
Not true. It's a nice thought that they don't.
Well, okay,
do.
but do you pay full price, or do you pay more to get last minute tickets?
It depends. If you're the type of person, and both happen, if you're the type of person with disposable income and you're in town for a short period of time, or you have a guest in town and you have a reason that you have to go that night, and either you're older, so your eyesight or hearing isn't that good, or you just don't like sitting up in the balcony, you want to have decent seats, all of that costs money. And they go to the box office and they buy the tickets. And they do.
Yeah,
there are those emergency seats that are always held at the box office that are full price or more, that they hold on to for up to 2 hours before the show. And they will sell them full price to somebody walking up 2 hours before the show and fill them up.
It's a wonder.
If it's a hit. If the show is a hit.
It's a wonder that we don't sell those binoculars at every theater, because it's like, then, well, I guess they don't, because they want people to buy the best seats.
Yeah.
When I got a new prescription and I got new glasses, and I was able to see without squinting and straining, and I went to the theater like a day or 2 later, and I was like, oh my God, this is what it's like to see. And I had to realize, like, I had been straining in these lenses for a while, and like I was really due for a refreshed prescription. But yeah, when I think about it now, and I'm just like, yeah, I obviously can't sit on the back wall,
Mm-hmm. That happens with age, and also realizing that the good seats are really much better. You get to see things. The other interesting part, though, is hearing. A 30-year-old friend of mine who I saw yesterday he doesn't go to the theater regularly, but he does appreciate it. And he bought an inexpensive seat and sat in the second row. It was, I guess, some last minute special thing they had. I'm not going to mention the show. And he had trouble hearing because every actor was mic'd. It was a musical. The speakers are aimed at the producer seats, which are fifth, sixth row back. So they assume if you're sitting right up front, you're hearing people live on stage. What's the problem? Well, the problem is many actors, knowing that they're mic'd, don't sing out full. And they wait for the sound engineer to boost them a little bit, and they know that they don't have to kill their voice 8 times a week. So he actually said, 2 of the actors, I really couldn't even hear them through most of the show, and he was in the second row.
I know. Sometimes I look at the ensemble, and I'm like, "Are you bringing it?" I don't think you're bringing it.
8 performances a week is hard, and I don't know if that's going to become part of the new normal, whether we allow actors to, even Funny Girl, they have, the understudy goes on once or twice a week, guaranteed, just because it's a hard singing show, and I guess it was negotiated. So if that's true, maybe we don't need 8 performances a week.
Or if we know it's a hard singing show, why are we making it such a hard show to sing?
You're not going to tell Sondheim or anybody else that they can't write what they want to write.
Oh, no, absolutely. But if you already know, I'm gonna pray for the best that I'll get someone who can hit this note because I needed to go here. Yeah, I know. I'm just, it's like rhetorical.
We're in, here's the curmudgeon in me. We are in an industry that needs tweaking, and we still have our leaders refusing to even talk about the changes. And after the pandemic, God, we were just hoping that this was going to shake things up enough. You don't have to change the whole industry, but there's some tweaking that just makes it humanly possible for people to enjoy their job.
We've got tweaking to do just for you.
Hey, I'm not even going to smile at that one.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So
moving right along.
I got it. So I got an email, and I didn't see it in all the normal places that I see it. But I got an email from Hamilton the Musical, and it said, the producers of Hamilton have an epic tale that we think you'll love. And it was about Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street, returning to Broadway.
This is going to be, again, a big year for Sondheim. He's going to have Merrily We Roll Along, Sweeney Todd, and Into the Woods on Broadway.
I did not get the preview lottery. I didn't win.
Sometimes you just have to cough it up or wait.
I thought you were opening doors. These doors look like they were slamming shut in my face.
Well, yeah.
NYT.
Yeah.
W. Yes.
Yeah. But, just to be clear, so no one thinks that Merrily We Roll Along is going off Broadway, but it has such a Broadway cast that everyone is predicting it will soon transfer to Broadway after it gets a little time to work on kinks. Because Merrily is a troubled show. It has never worked. Yet there are fans who will go see it time and time again. And Sondheim admitted it just was that show he just couldn't figure out how to make it work. It works backwards in time, and that created lots of issues. So, but some good music, of course.
Yeah, it is interesting when you have like a couple of, I guess, it's kind of like when you have a good story but you don't know how to end it.
And just the opposite. The ending is at the beginning, so therefore you know where it's ending. And so how do we get to the beginning? And why are we going backward? It's a nice, interesting convention for theater, but it just somehow didn't work.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what they do with it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Jonathan
yeah.
Groff, Lindsay Mendez, and Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe. Yep. Let's sell tickets, and it's off Broadway at the New York Theater Workshop, which was the originator of Rent and
Yep.
a number of other hit shows after that. So
Yeah.
we'll see what they do. Speaking of money, that's the. Here's a big question. I'm getting tired. Well, I was before, but I'm getting tired of every theater company in the United States sending me emails begging for money. I'm not rich enough. So, being that if they were to send me money and saying we need to repair I-80, the national roadway from New York to San Francisco, I wouldn't have enough money to do that either. So, what is the responsibility of government to keeping theater afloat? Is there any?
Well, I mean, if you went to either chamber, whether the House or the Senate, and asked them a show of hands, who's seen a theatrical production in this month?
Well, change and then ask who paid for one.
Yeah,
Right?
and you can't count Schumer.
Yeah, right. Or
Yeah,
or Clinton.
yeah, but not a senator right now. But yeah, I mean, you can't count the New Yorkers.
Well, Hillary Clinton goes on. Yeah, she goes on her own.
Yes.
Although she's invited, I doubt she pays. We'll see. Who knows?
She's like, "You sure? I think I have a 20 here, and put your money away, please."
Yeah.
Put it away.
Anyway, I don't know the answer. I do know that London, the Brits were well known for the fact that they subsidized their theaters.
Mhm.
A lot of the reason why we have so many amazingly trained actors, their acting schools are subsidized. Their regional theaters are subsidized. However, in the past 10 to 20 years, every year they've been electing conservatives to their parliament, and every year the amount of money going to subsidize the arts has been reduced to the point that the theaters in London for the first time are complaining and begging, we can't stay afloat. The pandemic killed us. Why aren't you helping us?
Mhm.
And the prime ministers haven't been stepping up. They say they are, but they haven't. One of the interesting things that just happened was they are letting the physical theaters, they're covering 6 months worth of electric bills for the physical theaters in England, just to see whether or not they can keep the physical theaters afloat. But that's
Yeah.
not helping the shows. Anyway, you left me, Darnell. Where'd you go?
No, I'm here. I had to get a tissue.
Oh.
I saw I saw something. I don't know if it was it might have been last week tonight with John Oliver. And they were talking about there was like a game show or some sort of contest where a caller called in and they had this wheel and you spin the wheel and there were a bunch of prizes and one of the prizes was we'll pay your energy bills. And this one won the energy bills. We'll pay your energy bills.
Of course, there are places,
Can't
for
afford it.
example, I live in an apartment in which I have no energy bills. It's included in the rent. So that wouldn't have done me any good.
You're
My
like,
building pools the energy, so it's just
up
stuck in your
to
rent.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier to have it building wide. I guess that's a good thing. So also with the string of closings,
Mm-hmm.
Broadway will soon be done with the whole being dead thing. With the whole being dead thing. That's not really it. It's more like
Yeah.
that sounds like SpongeBob. More
Well,
like
it's still around for a while. Yeah, you and I both adored Beetlejuice. We had a
yeah.
great time. Again, it's not great theater. Who cares? It was worth the price of admission. We had a great time. And I don't need a critic to tell me, well, here's exactly what didn't work.
Yeah,
You
but it
know?
will start touring
Yeah.
December 6th. The
Well,
national tour
then you
starts.
have a show like Hamilton, which has 6 companies already on tour
Yeah.
at the same time, each of them making approximately 2 million plus profit each week. Think of how much money those producers and Lin-Manuel and the other creators make on that show.
Wow. My
It's
rejected title was Ham for
yeah.
Sweeney.
I'm sorry,
Was
was what?
Ham for Sweeney.
Ham for Sweeney.
Yeah. You remember how they did Ham for everything
Yeah,
else?
yeah.
Like everything. Ham for Sweeney. Yeah.
Oh Lord. Well,
Well,
and by the
you
way, and not trying to advertise a particular show, 1776,
know. Mhm.
which is not is far from one of my favorite shows in the world. They are Broadway has a reimagined version of it that's in previews right now. So that's why I don't want to be the reviewer. Have seen it. I will say I thought it was very special, and I liked it. It's all female transgender switched, meaning that all the founding fathers are not male. And the points that are made in it resound differently than were made
Hmm.
when I saw the original on Broadway, which I did not like. And this one I did like. So I'll give you that review part of it. Beyond that, I'll wait since they're still in previews. It's
You
inappropriate.
see, it's here-ly, there-ly,
Yeah.
everywhere a
See, look at that. You go for it.
I told you, I told you I ran a sing-along version of 1776 for several years.
No, I did not remember you said that.
Here in Philadelphia,
Wow.
under Once Upon a Nation, Historic Philadelphia Incorporated. We did a sing along version of 1776. Came with a goodie bag and a bunch of things you could throw at the screen, and yeah, it was a lot
Oh,
of
it was to
fun.
the movie. You did it with the movie.
Oh yeah, to the movie musical.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. We are
yeah,
talking about theater. You know that, don't you?
I know, but
Not
it's a
TV,
musical.
not
Still a musical. Anyway, yeah. So
Let's put
I
it
was,
this way. I'm the one screaming through the whole movie. Sit down, John. I
yeah.
am tired of him. It just goes on forever.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, come on. At least you
For
can
God's
edit
sake,
down the
John,
song a
sit down.
little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
John, is that you carrying on?
and I do not. Thank God they tried to make he plays the violin mean something.
Yeah.
In this version of the show of the musical.
What does it mean? He's a horn
I'm
dog?
not going to tell you. Not going to tell you because who knows that time the show officially opens in early October, whether they will have changed it again. I mean, that's one of the exciting things about previews. They are, as you know, you and I both know somebody in the show, and she has explained to me that they are rehearsing
Well, I know some
every day
bodies in the show.
during the week, and performing whatever changes they make that day, that evening. And they're doing it every single day during previews. So there's a lot of adjustments being made without rewriting the show. They can't change all the lines.
And it'll be ready by July 4th.
Now the show's on a limited run. We'll give it that.
I know. It's going to have a long preview.
It'll end up in Philadelphia next. You'll have you can do a sing along with them.
On the same stage with Rocky.
There you go. There you go. So one other thing, I'm kind of leading our agenda here today. Stacy Mindich, producer of Dear Evan Hansen. She's the lead producer. The show closed on Broadway this past Sunday. which is a shame. It really was a wonderful production, and it
The
did
movie
have
didn't do it
great
any justice, though.
had great meaning for a lot of people. She was interviewed and told the story of how she came to produce the show, how many years it took, how many how much convincing she had to go through when they're going, this is depressing. Who wants to put this on Broadway? How am I going to raise money for this? And how the writers approached her, and then how she had and the efforts they had to make going back at her and fighting with her to get the show into consideration, and how many readings and presentations. It's a fascinating read. I'm going to be wrong here. It could be the New York Times. I forget where it was, but you can find it online, I'm sure. Her name is Stacey, Stacey Mindich, Mindich. And she's a really good producer, somebody with great taste and quality. I mean, not just for this show, um, but it's particularly interesting to me that we still require writers to be aggressive and forceful and to have money of their own in order to get people to listen to their show.
Yeah.
You know, I'm depressing everybody, myself included.
I know
on,
it is.
sing, Darnell.
No,
Tell me how you're going to change Philadelphia theater to bring more new writers to the forefront and to help develop them so that their shows are better than their first draft.
I don't know.
There you go. Answer solved.
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton of ideas, but I feel like, at least what I think about every day is more about like how to just it's more about tweaking, just like how to let us function a little bit better than we may have in the past. Um, you
That'd be a
know,
major change if we could do that.
I would love, when it's unfortunate. It's like it's really hard to think about what else you could do if you didn't have the if you don't have the money to make sure people are adequately paid,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you can keep the ghost light on. And where do you get that from if everybody is going after the same people for the same money?
Right.
And then like here in Philadelphia, like we're always thinking about. I mean, it's always a fight with the city, like the Philadelphia Cultural Fund is always up on the chopping block. They're always like, "There's a little bit of money in this pot. Let's just take it out." No, there's a little bit of money in this pot. Just leave it alone. You know, it, it's like if you come into your house, right, and you have a dish that you keep your keys in, and you also have some pocket change in there, and you're always just trying to find ways to spend that pocket change. It's like it's not even enough to do anything with, which is why it stays there, which is why it ultimately accumulates, because you can't really do anything with it until it's something to do something with. I don't know. I guess they think it's enough, but it's not. It's not enough, because that's why we have arguments about it every year. That's why there's so much advocacy around keeping it and raising it.
Right.
And we see all these theaters here, but ultimately I think the problem is uh, everyone is so focused on work. Like, just thinking about it, just in a theater office, everybody's so focused on getting certain work done. Like, when do they have time to go out and see someone else's show? So what makes them think that somebody who's in an office across the street has time to come see the show if you're carrying on in your own theater, operating like everything is at a DEF CON level, and has to be, you're working overtime to do all of these things. Like I was thinking about the other day, we're putting all this effort into sending out an e-blast, and people are getting, you were just talking about everybody's in your inbox. Like,
Hmm.
I think everybody feels that way. So it's like, I don't know what to say. Like, I follow a ton of podcasts, but I really only listen to like maybe 3 or 4 of them a day.
Well, that's
Um,
more than
you
I
know,
do.
but
Yeah.
they're like, it's news, and then there's commentaries. There's a couple of them, but it's like I also go for, I take long walks and stuff like that. So those are my opportunities to do it. But like, who is coming home from work after they were stuck in traffic, frustrated, um, you know, and refreshing a little bit, and then running out to a theater every night?
And being willing to spend those kind of bucks on those tickets, not
Yeah,
knowing if it's going to keep them awake or
like,
if it's going
yes.
to move them at all.
Yeah, and you might just be thinking like, okay, I squeezed myself into this theater, and now I feel like this may not keep me awake.
Right?
Um,
Yeah.
and so I don't want to be rude and fall asleep on this. So I just won't go. Or, you know, we try to create an urgency to come see the show, come be a part of the conversation. Um, But because there's a time frame, there's a window of time, you keep saying like, "No, I'll go later. I'll go later." If you say that once, you're probably not going.
And
You know?
and the shame is, and you know this because our addiction to theater. Um, when you see something, it doesn't even have to be special. You see something good, you walk out of there a changed and better person, refreshed. Sometimes it moves your heart. Many times it's just makes you think of things you hadn't thought of, and you
Yeah.
spent some time focused on somebody else's story, and it's a
Mhm.
story that you can't find on TV. In most cases, I mean, it's not going to be Murder She Wrote. No one on stage is going to do that. There's a whole different type of writing for theater than you get in film. It's not going to be Tom Cruise trying to get you excited over Top Gun and we have to do stunts left and right. You can't do that on stage. There's a different kind of stunt going on. So it's not a competition. I want to go see Tom Cruise and I want to go see um, Into the Woods, right? Two
Yeah.
opposite things. But out of the two, I'm still talking about Into the Woods. I'm still thinking about its messages. I'm
Mhm.
still in my mind. You're still singing lyrics from it. Go on. Go on. Come on. Agony.
For me, it's for my granny in the woods. A loaf of bread, please.
Yep. There you go. And my favorite song from the show is Agony. You know,
Yeah.
when he talks about Rapunzel saying, knowing she would go with me if there only were doors.
If there
You
only were
I
yes.
mean, it cracks me up every time. You know,
Yes.
so that's
I
to have a real guffaw, which happens
Mhm.
very rarely on TV. We all have our sitcoms that may work with us, um, but these are the surprises in theater that make the price worthwhile when you get them. I would love a critic to let me know whether or not there's a chance I'm going to have them. There are shows that they have blasted that I walked out of there a changed person. And I resent the fact that my friends aren't going to want to go because they read the review.
Yeah.
Again, the power, it's not any review because there can be a bad review in one paper and you read another one that's good. But if you have the power of the New York Times, you need to be responsible about what you're doing to someone's livelihood and creativity. And that's my argument. We brought it back there, and I shouldn't. I'm on the rampage. Um, anyway,
My favorite line. He
good.
he spread pitch on the stairs, and I'm caught unawares. Well, it must mean he cares.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. There's more to that little phrase, the entire chorus there that we quote all the time. And the movie's wonderful. Those of you who can't get to the theater, the movie's actually a pretty good rendition of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
A different experience, though. Definitely a different experience. Anyway.
Yeah, and but I will say that seeing it live, this iteration of it, I am not like, there are a lot of people who always want to compare it to the last time they've seen it, or some other version, like, oh, this is not the original. Of course it's not. It's not the original.
And Sondheim was one of the few composer lyricists, writers who encouraged his shows to have a new life. Go ahead, bring a new idea to it. That's how they allowed company to switch genders. He did that while he's alive. Others, Rodgers and Hammerstein Foundation, used to fight. You want to change one line in this show? No, you're not allowed to do the show. And it's like, well, wait a minute. That song went on for 9,000 hours, and in contemporary America, we don't need to hear that. Can we cut a verse? And Rodgers and Hammerstein would say no. And you were stuck doing it. And then Sondheim did the opposite. So
he said that. No. And another 100 people just got off of the train.
Yes, I hope we have some fans out there who know what we're talking about.
Oh, please. I hope so. Yes.
Yeah, it would be nice.
If not, where are you? What are you doing? Hey, listen. So on the website, emory.com, em3ry.com, we have a link for a shop. And if you click on the link for the shop, you can buy merch. And we have T-shirts. I have an Emory T-shirt. I'm working on one for the business of theater. But the company that makes our T-shirts, which are so soft and great, they make phone cases now. So I'm working on some designs that look good on the phone case, and I'm excited about that. But it made me think. I was like, I have to redo our logo so that it looks good on a T-shirt.
Well, see, over the years I used to have little gifts, what are called premiums, and I have no desire to spend money on things that there aren't 100,000 people waiting to buy. Concerts I used to do with the Village People, you'd think their T-shirts would go like gangbusters. They're icons, and while people did buy them, never enough. Enough.
The good thing about this is that all I have to do is upload a graphic, and they will do the rest.
Yeah, but you have to pay them.
Well, yeah. The way it works.
That's the part I'm talking about. You have to lay out the money, and unless you know you're going to get it back,
you mark up the cost so that you can make something off it. They make the money.
I understand.
But yeah,
I understand. And we do that on Broadway. We do that even some off Broadway. But it is numbers, and you have to keep in mind. The T-shirt companies know that they're the ones guaranteed to make money from you. And then you're taking the risk that you're going to get it back. Yeah. Same thing, my book, The Business of Broadway, the publisher paid me up front. And then after he made back his initial payment to me, then royalties started. But he couldn't be sure the book would ever sell enough that he would get paid back. So he took the risk.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen with T-shirt companies, right? They just want you just pay us.
Well, they are being savvy. They're using technology to say, because now the company that I work with is called Cotton Bureau. The company I work with, I can sign in on any device, mobile, computer, and very easily upload a file and post it to my on-demand page, and now it's available in store. And I think that that's pretty clever, because before you used to have to wait a few days. They'd have to create, they'd take your file and set it up, and you'd have to view a proof and everything, and then you would get it. But their technology makes this all happen so quickly, and so I like that. That's good. I think I might find some of the working titles and put them on put them on shirts.
I think that's going to be an inside joke.
That's all right.
Okay.
Whatever. Then I'll be the only one walking around with them, and they'll
Right.
be like, "Where did you get that?" And I'll be like, "Shop the look."
Yeah,
It's there.
right. And by the way, there is an actual year, and I think it was in the late 1960s, before which T-shirts only came blank. They had never written anything on a T-shirt prior to that date. It is that precise. I don't know what
Back
the
in the
date is.
olden days,
Yeah, olden days.
the
Anything
days of
goes.
yore.
Right. Still one of the great
Yeah.
moments of movies in Young Frankenstein. Well, movies and theater. When he does, um, and what do you call it? Anything goes when he does the song
Yeah.
on stage. He does the tap dance. Anyway, moving on.
Mitch, as much as you remind me, this is a theater podcast.
Well, Young Frankenstein was on stage, so there.
Yes. But you're talking about the movie.
The movie, yes. Well,
Okay. So speaking of
speaking of which,
stages,
Sally Struthers is doing Young Frankenstein in California right now.
what?
She's
Sit
not
down.
Young Frankenstein. She's whatever the Cloris Leachman role. I forget Frau, whatever her name is.
I haven't heard Sally Struthers' name in a long
Yeah,
time.
and there are many of our audience might not know who she is at all. That's okay.
No.
She's
If you don't,
she's a wonderful person and a good actress. That's fine.
raise your hand. It's
Hey.
like it was basically commercials. So you'd mentioned that you were gonna get through a bunch of shows, that you were gonna see a bunch of shows in September.
Right. Well, I've seen some, and I'm continuing. I'm seeing. I said we already mentioned 1776. There's a wonderful drama, Jasper, off Broadway. Seeing Death of a Salesman Friday night. I've got Raisin in the Sun at the Public Theater. Death of a Salesman's on Broadway. I'm going to forget the list. There's a bunch that I'm starting to see. And yet there's a long list I don't have tickets for yet. I can't afford it. I'm going, as I go to previews, I go to whatever will save me money. But I'm one of those people. I don't need to sit in the prime seats, but I also no longer am willing to sit in the last two rows of the balcony. So it's kind of that in-between section. Sometimes I need to wear my glasses instead of my contacts. You're right. You figure that out before you go. Where am I sitting? Can I handle this? Also, there's some theaters, the seats are really tight. So on those, I do whatever I can to get an aisle seat because I can't stand someone's who won't let me put my arm on the armrest because we are shoulder to shoulder and we both have broad shoulders and it's like fighting someone. No. Here's a complaint. Well,
Sir, do you mind?
Curmudgeon. Yes. You and I are not fat. And forgive me, audience, that's what it is. If you're over 300 pounds, to me, that's the word. Okay? Why are there no seats for people who have girth? Why does theater, we now finally, they had to pass a law in order to have a seat for someone who's disabled, where you can bring a wheelchair in, they can take the seat, the real seat out, they move them into position. At least that's now exists in theaters. And they have handicapped bathrooms, which did not exist for a very long time. They had to have a law. What about people who are heavy? Why do they have to squeeze into a seat that's uncomfortable for me? How do they fit in it? Why shouldn't there be some seats for people to be comfortable? That's the question. These are small things that would revolutionize the theater to me. People have to start thinking about their audience.
We talked about it earlier, where you need to have certain seats if you have vision constraints and so on. and you end up paying more for those seats.
Right. Well,
And
because we're in a capitalistic system, and
there would be a
you know,
surcharge,
yeah.
which is
And of
unfortunate.
course,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that someone who with a sight impairment isn't rich enough to afford the full price seat.
Well, in general, yeah, for those seats, like who is the body type you're basing these seats on?
And
Because
we're smart enough. If we can sink the Titanic on stage, we can figure out how to find a seat for someone who doesn't fit in the actual regular seat that everybody else is in. It shouldn't
yeah,
be that hard. You take it out, you put in another seat when they show up, as long as they tell you in advance.
I mean, and for the prices,
Thank you.
you think
Uh,
these seats would be like business class,
Thank you. Yeah,
business
that,
class.
and of course, the newer theaters, certainly on Broadway, and some of the new off Broadway theaters have actually said, it's important that we have comfortable seats. And
Yeah,
there are some that have done it. Again, that's an example. Someone's done it. So what's wrong with everybody else?
hmm
Right? You don't have to invent the wheel. You go to them and say, "How did you do it?" And you try to work it out. Anyway, that's regional theaters. Start working on it. America is no longer 150 pounds and 5'9".
They're
It's
like, in a valiant effort to get you back to the theater, we are ripping out all of our seats, which is going to cost an arm and
No, you
49
don't have to
legs.
rip them
We're going
all
to put
out.
on hold our expansion plans and make sure we have fresh new seats.
But
Actually, we did. We just
something. If Yeah, you do. But I'm saying if you advertise that, I might go,
mm-hmm.
because I mean that actually is an enticement. Just like I would pick an airline if they told me, and some of them do, that they actually have some more room for my
Yeah.
legs, and my arms don't have to beat the person in the middle seat. Right?
Yeah.
If they have
I,
it, I'd
I
go.
guess I guess they're trying to figure out like how many people they can just shoehorn into a space. And
Yeah, it's all
it's
about
like, well,
money.
I don't know. I think people would pay for the more comfort.
Well, but except and they're called handicapped seating. If you have someone in a wheelchair that comes in, they have locations. It's usually 2 or 4, depending on the size of the Broadway theater, and they're cheaper. They're the price of upstairs,
Hmm.
but you get to sit downstairs. It's not the greatest seat in the world, but you have full view. And what some of the theaters do, they bring their head carpenter in from backstage. He unscrews the seat on the aisle, the far aisle, and they make that a platformed area, and that's where the wheelchair goes. Others have regular wheelchair locations that they'll put a folding chair in when they don't need it. Both of
Hmm.
which are valid ways to do it. And it doesn't cost any more to do that. You don't pay the carpenter more; it's part of his job. You can still, sell a seat in a folding chair if somebody wants it. If there's no wheelchair,
I will take
so
this folding chair, please.
yeah.
I want to sit in the fire zone. Wherever there's a fire hazard, put me right there.
Gee, Jonelle, I want you in charge of my theater.
Yeah. No. We have ample seating at Theater Exile. Please come join us, please.
Yep,
Yes.
looking forward.
I'm going to see a show tonight. It's part of the Cannonball Fest,
Hmm.
which is part of the Fringe Arts here in Philadelphia. It's called Man of La Mansion. It's a, it's a
Gee, a
satirical.
takeoff of something else, really?
Yes, yes. It'll be interesting. It's going to be a fun little romp. And then tomorrow I'm going to see um, Gunnar Montana, who is a multifaceted artist, but primarily in dance.
Hmm.
Has a fringe offering called Bath House, and it's a sexy, dancy escapade. It's going to be a lot of fun. But you can listen. You can listen to an interview with Gunnar Montana on Rep Radio about Bathhouse. But I'm going to see that tomorrow.
Gee, this reminds me of Disney's their system where they own ABC TV and they have radio stations. They just promote themselves on each of their platforms. You get to do that. You
Pretty
get
much.
to promote one
Oh my God,
podcast on the other.
Everything we watched, it was Disney. So we watched the new Pinocchio.
Ah,
Pinocchio.
and how was it?
It was almost embarrassing how much Disney IP was throughout the movie.
Oh.
Throughout the production. It was all over the place. Like, you know, he's a clockmaker, so all the clocks were modeled after Disney characters. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I don't know what people were expecting, but I feel like everybody just wants to find a way to be critical about something. But I think the good thing about the good thing for Disney is that they have their own platform. They don't care what anybody else thinks.
That's right. And in
you
many cases, they make more money from their merchandise than they do from their programming. So the fact that Pinocchio has been brought from the dead, from having been an ancient movie, now they have a whole new character to sell, and a whole new character put in the theme parks, and a whole new character to have a new TV club series, the Pinocchio Club. I wouldn't be surprised.
And there's also, I know Disney is not a sponsor.
No,
Disney,
it's not. We're not. We have nothing to do with it.
There's a show called High School Musical, the series.
Yeah, I know.
And this season they were at summer camp, and they put on Frozen.
Jeez.
And that was the finale. We watched the finale last night. I'm like, oh, this is cute. This is cute. It's not for me. I mean, like, I'm not the audience, but I did enjoy it. Very much. I feel like I kind of look for musicals, and I look for theatrical in everything. I end up consuming everywhere, really.
and I don't. There are things that I greatly appreciate when I see them, but some person I know has got to say, "Oh, you need to see this," or I go to theater.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, with the exception of a revival, but even the revivals feel fresh. It's a new cast. It's a new interpretation. There's a collaborative, creative team working live to make it an experience for me. It's not me sitting at home eating my brains out and waiting for a commercial so I can go to the bathroom. It's a different experience. Theater, I'm there. Every now and then it's not so good. That's, I get it. But if somebody was making an effort, I like that. And I just wish there was more. And as you said, most of the people we know work too hard to be able to see as much theater as we do. And that's why I think it's such a small, passionate group of people. We are very lucky.
That was my mission. I'm trying to see as much theater on behalf of those who can't see theater.
Is that what it is? You represent? There you go. Represent.
Yes.
Rep Radio. There you go.
Rep Radio represented. Yes. But speaking of which, I do have tickets to a show tonight, so we must go. So that is it.
And I am going to a college showcase of young talent graduating with their masters in theater arts. And it's usually very boring. And most college professors don't know how to put on a successful show, but it doesn't mean the talent isn't there. So I go and I try to overlook the show and just see what new talent is available. that hopefully I get to cast in some of the younger roles and shows that I'm working on.
Yeah, I just recruited 2 new interns.
Ah,
Who I want to make sure that we are not saddling them with busy work.
good
I
for
want to
you.
make sure they can actually see, how our organization runs,
Hmm.
and you know, I'm really working to uh, create something of value for them. Really excited to have them.
That's great.
So I'm
Good
looking
for
forward to
you.
that.
Good for you.
Yes.
Oh,
But that is the business of theater, a working title. I'm Darnell Radford,
I'm Mitch Weiss.
and we'll see you at the theater.
Have a wonderful week.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.